Hello and welcome to FTTR. I'm Hugh McQuaid, and today is going to be a review of this bad boy. Yeah, the Young Bucks Killing the Business from the Backyards to the Big Leagues. It's taken me about 7 different times to actually nail that title, so I'll probably get it wrong many times in this video. But yes, I've finished the Young Bucks autobiography. And what can I say about this? Did I like it? Did I not? Yeah, I really enjoyed this book. Now, I'm not a big reader. I'll probably say that a lot in this video as well. But this book had me hooked from the beginning. Like, I like the Young Bucks, but I feel like I like the Young Bucks a lot more after reading this book than I did before, because I just didn't know some of the stories that are told in this book. I knew some because I watched the shoot interview that they did. But this just elaborates on a lot of the points that are made at that time in the shoot interview and ones going forward relating to AEW. So some of the highlights from this book, in particular for me, are the chapter about TNA and the chapter about Bullet Club. Now there's a few chapters that revolve around the Bullet Club and the Bucks' journey to Japan, but seeing the various different iterations of the club, the one led by AJ Styles, the one led by Devitt, and the one led by Kenny Omega. Those are fascinating stories to hear about the deals that go on with the companies, how AJ, Gallows and Anderson all eventually left New Japan for WWE, how Devitt left New Japan for WWE, and how that affected them. Because that's not really something you see, is when their friends, when your friends leave you. It's heartbreaking, but we don't really get to see that on the screen. And this book really documents how how sad they felt, the Young Bucks felt when their friends left them for another company, and how they eventually felt guilty when they left New Japan to start AEW. It's this really interesting look into the wrestling world and how the various different promotions function and take talent away from other companies. Now, the TNA section of the book was probably my favourite because I had very little knowledge about what happened with the Young Bucks in TNA. And the whole image change from Vince Russo, how they weren't getting booked, and how they hated getting their hair cut and being called Generation Me. All that stuff is one made me want to go back and rewatch some of the Young Bucks stuff in TNA. I mean, they say how well the match with the Motor City Machine Guns went down, so I'd really love to go back and see that one. But some of the dealings that go on behind the scenes in TNA, such as the Jay Lethal release and eventually the Young Bucks asking for their release, and the way they look upon TNA as they almost frown upon it because of what happened there, is really fascinating, and I really enjoyed that section. Now, there's a few areas in the book, I don't want to say areas, these are probably nitpicks, because I genuinely really love this book. It's very difficult to get me hooked on a book, but I finished this quite quickly by my standards. It usually takes me about 6 months to read a book. I finished it in about 2 weeks. Don't judge me. But I really, not that I had really big issues, the 2 points that really stuck out for me as just needing a little bit more development were, we get a lot about Matt and his relationship with Dana in the book, but we don't, in my opinion, see enough of Nick's relationship with Ellen. And I feel like I got to know Matt really well in this book. Like, I understand him as a fully formed person. Nick, on the other hand, I feel like maybe got the shorter end of the stick. I don't feel like I know him as much as I know Matt, in particular his family life. But that's something that could always be developed in future stories, future autobiographies. And the only other aspect that is breezed over a little bit is the end with All Elite Wrestling. Now, we get a lot about All In and the formation and the relationship with Tony Khan, who helped put a lot of this stuff together. But it sort of breezes over Double or Nothing and All Out, and I would have liked to have forgotten a little bit more of how those shows were put together. Maybe that's for an All Elite Wrestling book down the line. Maybe it's not something that needs to be explored in a Young Bucks autobiography. Yeah, I'm so confused as which one's which. I'm stupid, I know. I really think that those elements needed a little bit more development. But other than that, I think this book is a triumph, and what I really hope it leads to is more All Elite Wrestling books like this, because I would love to hear Cody's perspective on some of these events, his relationship with WWE and leaving, as well as Kenny's megastardom in Japan. I think those elements right there could make for almost it's not a cinematic universe, what would it be? A written universe. No, that's dumb, just ignore I said that. But sort of like a universe of All Elite Wrestling books that tie in and create almost more mythos around the company and how these stars came to be in that company. I think that is a brilliant starting point anyway. The Young Bucks is basically like Iron Man. So we just need a few more books, because I would eat them up so much. I feel like a lot of the All Elite Wrestling fan base would want to know these stories, and I'd love to have them elaborated on more, which is hopefully something they're going to do in the future. But if I were to rate this book out of 5, I would give it a solid 4 out of 5. There were a few nitpicks, but other than that, I found it very difficult to put it down, and like I've said, that's something that is very difficult to come by with me. I usually read. I'm a monster who stops halfway through a chapter, so I'm told. Yeah, that is a triumph. It really is a triumph, and I really, really recommend this book. Even if you're not a wrestling fan, it still gives you a really good understanding of not just mainstream wrestling, but also independent wrestling, which is something right now everyone needs to be supporting, because, yeah, it's not great for those smaller companies at the moment, and this book really gives you an insight into how those companies work and how they're put together, which is just another plus point for me, learning and understanding all that different stuff and the various different promotions that exist within the world, because this really explores the world. So yeah, I would really, really recommend this book to even non-wrestling fans, because it is a brilliant autobiography, and I'll give it a solid 4 out of 5. There's my official rating. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. If you like what you have seen, give this video a like and give the channel a subscribe. Support FTTR, and thank you ever so much, and have a nice day.